Welcome. I'm Saima Ijaz, joining you from Nanaimo, British Columbia, located on the beautiful and traditional territory of Snuneymuxw First Nations for this month's webinar. Today's topic hits home for me as I've spent over 20 years learning and working for this subgroup, both at a personal and as a professional level. Most of the children that I've worked with have been pre and primary school aged and had a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder and had not progressed considerably after a year of early intervention. This is what I had experienced for my own son, who received his diagnosis at Shidok Children's Hospital, Hamilton, Ontario in 2000. Just a reminder that all the webinars are recorded for later viewing. Saad is moderating the meeting, and you can send your questions to him anytime during the presentation. I will begin with a few words about the 3 levels of autism spectrum disorder before going over the different aspects of the 3rd level. I'll clarify the misconception that nonverbal autism is the same as severe autism. We'll see how level 3 children differ from those at other levels of autism and what it's like for the families. Their usual presentations, parents' biggest worry and the reason behind the extra support recommendation, process of diagnosis and reassessment, intervention options, and what usually works for them. Dual diagnosis of level 3 with intellectual disability, and my favorite, parents' empowerment, their role and steps about teaching this child. So DSM-5 assigns 3 levels to the diagnosis based on the extent of their signs and symptoms, along with the recommending need for the extra support, with level 1 being the mild form, requiring least amount of support, and level 3 as the severe form, requiring very substantial, sometimes around-the-clock support. All individuals on the autism spectrum disorder are characterized by difficulty in communication and socialization. They experience sensory sensitivities and have restricted interests and repetitive behaviors that are apparent during early childhood and are severe enough to affect their daily living. All children on the spectrum require some level of daily supports that are above and beyond what a typically developing child requires. This slide shows a simplified version of the signs and symptoms of mild, moderate, and severely affected individuals on the spectrum that range from slight and sparing to marked and frequent. Children on autism level 3 exhibit the same symptoms and behaviors as those on level 1 and 2, but they are way more intense and frequent. So it often means that the person is nonverbal, has extremely restricted social communication skills. They experience profound challenges which make it nearly impossible for them to gain independence as they continue to need help with basic daily activities throughout their lives. They are also more likely to have other associated conditions like intellectual disability, global developmental delays, epilepsy, tuberous sclerosis, and Fragile X syndrome. Nonverbal autism is a term used for a subgroup of people with autism who cannot speak more than a few words. And an estimated 40% of people with ASD are considered nonverbal. Quite a few nonverbal folks on the spectrum learn and choose to communicate using sign language, picture cards, and a range of digital tools fluently. They do not have the severe form of autism. Children on level 3 autism have neither verbal nor verbal communication skills, along with none to minimal language comprehension. To learn, we depend on our senses to process the information around us. The three basic types of learning styles are visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, which are what we see, what we hear, and what we feel, move, and play with. Level 3 autism children have high sensory sensitivities and defensiveness, affecting all three major learning paths, which makes the child hesitant to explore his space and has difficulty bonding with a caregiver. Therefore, the child feels insecure and confused. As we also use the same three pathways for teaching, it'll make the child appear distressed. With time, he'll become aloof with extremely restricted interest. The child can be seen spending his entire day repeating the same activity that he's comfortable with over and over, and resist strongly if an attempt is made to take away that particular toy or object. For the most time, the child may appear deaf and blind, even though parents know that he can hear and see. He may appear aloof to most sounds, including his name being called, but may cry or scream at a particular sound each time, or say gets excited if someone opens a bag of chips in another room. So, that obviously is heard that. Or you would see him run right into an obvious object like wall or a tree, then usually turns at the very last moment. He could also be seen running into water unaware of the depth repeatedly. Although these children do not communicate, they are aware of what's happening around them. They have intense feelings and can react to those. Their heightened sensitivities cause them a recurring state of discomfort and pain, which child attempts to avoid, ignore, and escape from. So he could be found sitting in a closet, under the bed, in a corner, or another tight and dark spot with a worried look, sometimes humming or rocking. When unable to find a safe spot to self-calm, his system can get overwhelmed, and that's when the child has a meltdown. Repetitive behaviors, self-stimulatory behaviors, stimming or stims. They are a repetition of a physical movement, sound, word, or moving parts. Such behaviors are found to some extent in everyone when anxious, especially those with developmental disabilities, and are very frequent in people on the autism spectrum. Stimming is a protective response to overstimulation in which people calm themselves by blocking less predictable environmental stimuli, to which they have a heightened sensitivity. Stimming is also a way to relieve anxiety and other negative or heightened emotions. Although some stimming behaviors are very beneficial at times, due to a stigmatizing effect, they are discouraged by many consultants and their intervention teams. As a parent, I was asked by my child's early therapeutic team to ignore his stimming and discourage those behaviors. One of the main concerns that the parents have is about the frequent meltdowns, where the child starts screaming and lashing out for no apparent reason, as it's impossible to console. These meltdowns can be a result of frustration caused by hugely discomforting sensitivities or inability to communicate basic needs like hunger, thirst, or sleep. Could be due to pain that are due to a concurring medical issue, or just like having a headache, tummy ache. Many children on the stomach have food intolerances causing bloating, constipation, with intermittent diarrhea and reflux issues. They also tend to have more ear infections and allergic reactions. High demands and requests, and it's mostly around comprehension, that the child does not get what you're asking them to do, and then he can sort of see that disapproval on your face. Change in routine and transitions, and inability to connect and learn. In addition to the meltdowns, child may have other behaviors or tendencies leading to child safety concerns requiring 24/7 supervision, like self-injurious behaviors. Some kids do head banging, and it could be severe enough to cause intracranial bleeds. Child can repeatedly self-bite to break skin, and they can get skin infection that can go into deeper tissue infections by scratching the raw skin areas. Despite getting hurt and experiencing pain, child continues to engage in self-injurious behavior, which is extremely stressful for the families. Some other common concerns are child mouthing everything, lack of sleep, seizures, and absolutely no sense of danger. Due to the severity of symptoms, level 3 children do get noticed and diagnosed early. They seem to benefit more from occupation and play therapy, which focuses on their individual sensory profiles and facilitates exploration through likable activities. They also respond well to structured activities throughout the day called sensory diet, and the frequency of their meltdowns and restrictive behaviors diminish. They do not connect well with speech, sign language, or use of PECs for more than a few words. Under ABA intervention, basic sorting and visual imitation skills can be achieved to some extent, but again, the hindrance is in teaching early word recognition. When the child stops making gains, programs become static, and the child starts losing focus and calmness. The restrictive and problematic behaviors reemerge and become more frequent. It's important for the parent to keep track of the objectives and the response of the child and choose therapeutic approach where child seems relaxed, willing, and is gaining. While it's not always easy to distinguish between the children who have no spoken language from the pre-verbal ones who have not yet developed speech, and from the non-communicative ones who have neither verbal nor non-verbal communication skills at the time of the diagnosis. However, it does become apparent after a period of therapeutic intervention in the form of speech acquisition or learning other forms of communication, or if the child has not responded well to the visual as well as the verbal communication teachings. Children are usually reassessed by an autism specialist after some period of early intervention to observe the gains in ways of communication and other areas of concerns, and to be able to comment at the level of severity, possibility of intellectual disability or ability, and other developmental delays. This is done so the future recommendations of additional support and services could be made. The specialist at this point might say that the child cannot learn as he has intellectual disability, but this therapy is still his best option and should be continued as a way of encouraging and motivating him. Remember that not very long ago, every child diagnosed with autism was considered to be intellectually disabled. With sudden recent improvement in the approach and strategies, the percentage has dropped from 100 to 40. It has been my hope that as we continue to improve and tweak the intervention steps for each child individually to where the child begins to connect and learn, this percentage will continue to drop. I did not believe my child's shared prognosis when after a period of early intervention, he was marked with an IQ below 40, which is the lowest that they mark. And I've worked with many families who have felt the same way about the child regarding the intellectual disability or ability. Behavior consultants sometimes say that children use problematic behaviors when the teaching steps get a little harder, and this should be ignored for his benefit. I strongly believe that if the child is resisting an intervention or begins to regress in any way, First, strongly advocate for the step modification to a level where he or she can comprehend and start making gains. But in the absence of such modifications, consider discontinuation of that service. Emerging or more frequent self-injurious behaviors like head banging or hand bites, decreased sleep and focus are clear red flags that the child cannot handle this intervention and an immediate change is required. So what options do the parents have if they decide to discontinue an available therapy that's not working? First, if you haven't tried occupational or play therapy yet, please consider those. Families of children with autism spectrum disorder do need specialists to assess, plan, and implement programs. However, this is also a fact that no one knows these children like their parents do, who have been there with them all along. They help them with daily tasks like brushing teeth, changing, showering, to taking them out, trying to console multiple times a day, putting them to bed. And they have found some ways of somehow connecting with them and help them navigate through the day. I've spent years educating parents on how to use their observations and gut feelings as a guiding tool on this journey, in addition to setting up early intervention therapy for the child. Many places in this world have no autism resources around diagnosis and intervention, or a few extremely expensive out-of-the-pocket ones, which leaves parents with no choice but to rely on themselves. Some of the basic steps that I'll share with you are not too different, but you may have already seen, read, or even tried. Difference is sometimes recognizing the step that takes priority over others, and the process of individualizing these steps further by breaking them down to a point where child is able to take that step. Setting agreeable routines and changing our way of communication to build child's cooperation and trust. It begins by truly believing in what our child is trying to communicate through his or her behavior. So there's a need to refine our current approach in at least 6 areas. I tried this first as a mom for my son and then for other children like him. I've worked on establishing a staircase approach by material modification and creating smaller steps. As each child is different, in-person interaction and learning from child's body language as you adapt and modify the steps initially is of paramount importance. I believe in sharing the findings with the families in simple terms when the child starts making gains. As a parent, when you are with your child, if your mind knows what are the signs that you're looking for and how to make little alterations or build on something, you'll start seeing what works and what doesn't more clearly. You can then approach and ask the intervention team to work on those steps with you, or you can hire and train support workers, students, or family members to create your own team. So let's begin with a simple document by listing 5 things that grab your child's attention and interest, like floating bubbles, sprinklers, playing with water or dry leaves, juice or a snack, and 5 situations and happenings that make him tense or make him space out, scream, or run away and hide, like crowds, sound of siren, doorbell, sound of thunder. Gradually, we work on creating a space for the child that is free of as many deterrents as possible, and make sure that he has an easy access to the motivators or the pictures of the motivators. Let this list become a living document, update it often, and share with everyone who spends any time with him. Best thing that we can do for our child is to connect with him in a way that is understandable to him, meaningful, and non-intrusive. Instead of conversing in our usual way, break it down to the use of words and phrases. Name things that your child shows interest in, touches, looks, or picks up. Label what you're doing with your child and repeat, like when helping a non-speaker taking a bath, say, time for a bath. Let's go for a bath. Good taking a bath. Kim and Mom take bath every day. You can do a little story about it. Work with just a few words at a time. Instead of asking a question like, what would you like to eat? Try show and tell, like bread or cheese or cereal. Offer choices like this throughout the day and compliment often. Research tells us that how we respond to any child's action or interaction has an impact on his growing mind and his motivation. Studies have shown that out of the 4 usual way of responses, it's only with a compliment that we can motivate a child and make him feel good about himself. A nonverbal, non-communicative child without any word comprehension can still tell by our expressions, tone, and volume if we are fine and approve of him or not. A child doesn't know that our disapproval is directed towards the action and not for him. For a child, it's always personal. So it's important to pay attention to our facial expressions and body language along with the tone and volume of the spoken words. Keeping a neutral face and a calm, sympathetic voice during the meltdowns goes a long way. I have worked with some extremely sound-sensitive kids where a quiet approach with smile, hugs, and gestures like nods, thumbs up, high fives work much better than a verbal compliment. Usual intervention approaches begin with building skills that the child is lacking. For the child on level 3 autism, we first need to look at what he does to self-stimulate and calm himself. It is of vital importance that we understand what are the stimuli that the child is seeking and then chain those to similar sensory input producing activities. We can provide him with a guided opportunity to learn those activities, starting with just few at a time, and you can try it at different time of the day. Then try to set a safe space and access where he could run around and try those any time of the day by himself and with others. So let's go over some of the examples here. If your child rocks, getting him a rocking toy like a rocking horse or a small chair. Kids who like to hum, they are trying to dampen sounds around them. So use of white noise or a fan. Kids who do finger flicking, they usually like fidgets and the switch toys. Those who like to flap hands and do tapping, give them something to tap on, some pots and pans and drums. Kids who like to spin and run around a lot, use of swivel chair, swing, hammock, just dancing with them or setting up some running tracks and setting up footprint patches where they can run from one area to other and see if they follow that. Splashing, if they like splashing water, getting a mini pool in the yard or use of hose sprinklers or long bubble baths. Those who like to scratch and soft bite and do headbutting, brushing helps. Toys with a little like a pin art or balls with spiky edges, application of deep pressure and electric massagers help. So set a daily routine of 5 to 10 minutes, morning and afternoon, focusing on activities that encourage deep breathing. Model blowing bubbles and encourage him to try. Some other ways are by blowing to keep a feather afloat or swirling a pinwheel. Deep exhales mean a deep inhale, and it'll help tune his breathing muscles, and he'll experience the calm that comes with it. Also encourage calming and soothing activities using sensory toys and equipment reflecting his sensory input craving that we discussed in the previous slide. While he's sitting and when he's on the go, then create a communication board with his choice activities and some snacks and drinks. This board will also serve as a visual reminder of self-initiating play. Remember that learning doesn't happen when the mind is anxious. So that's why we are focusing so much to getting this child calm and happy first. A calm child can be helped to overcome his or her sensory defensiveness that he has developed as a result of his heightened sensitivities. Help him explore white noise to soothing auditory, show him twirling or spinning toys and color-changing lights to lava lamp to improve his central vision, along with giving him tactile sensory bins and fidgets. A pea pod or weighted blankets for deep pressure and a toy that vibrates. Some or all could be good additions to his space. We'll discuss this in detail in one of the following webinars. Instead of teaching early words with the usual first word flashcards, create personal books for this child with labeled pictures of what's more meaningful and personal for him. Start as small with just 4 to 5 pictures at first, and later you can build on that. First book title could be Family, with a picture of the child and picture of his mom and dad, or if he has another caregiver, and the siblings. The second one could be about what I like to eat. So some foods that he loves and snacks. Third one could be just toys. And then it could be around other things that he shows interest in, whether it's a rag that he carries around. If it's important for the child, name it and take a picture. Make one little booklet about 4 to 5 favorite community places. So home is always the first one. So he understands that everything that he was looking at and all the other books are around home, but then there is school or preschool, there's park, there's playground, there's a camping ground, anywhere that he likes to go, it should be in that little booklet. I have found 4 by 6 pocket albums great for creating these mini books. You can keep these in the child's bedroom, family room, or where he spends most of his time and use often. Think about 5 activities that he enjoys that you found that you can do together. If it's blowing bubbles, splashing water, tickling, cuddles, drive. So take those pictures and then it could be your first little workbook. So yeah, go over these books frequently and encourage any interest, flipping of the pages, or any initiation on the child's part. And last but not the least, introduction to visual schedules, whether it's about establishing a night routine or teaching first and then concept, visuals help. Here you see 2 types of visuals. So there's the simple one about the night routine, which has just like packs for bath, pajamas, brush teeth, read books, bedtime. And then there's the other one with some more real pictures. Kids on level 3 work better with real pictures, but they can also majority have a great visual memory for sight words. So real pictures prepared with labels that are bold and colorful, they catch the attention. So this child has lots of learning strengths. We just need to pick on those and eliminate the areas that are really hard for him. So this is for now, but in the following webinars, I will discuss the mentioned areas like play, sensory issues, visual structures, and a lot more in detail. So don't forget to join us again. So do we have any questions, Saad? Okay, I have a question in the chat. I have a 4-year-old daughter with autism diagnosis and a newborn. My daughter is very sensitive to sound and can't tolerate her brother's crying. I'm at a loss as how to handle this. Okay, just one sec. So the child, there are some deterrents that you just cannot eliminate, like the one you just mentioned. So there are a few simple strategies worth mentioning, though we don't know which one would be most effective for the child, and you'll have to try it out to find out. When your baby is crying, get to your daughter's eye level and cover your ears and just make a distressed look and face, and then like make some whimpery sound, and then put on a noise canceling headphone, and then give her a try to do the same. You can also make use of white noise. Again, have to try and see which one she would like. If she likes music, then just play music. Slowly, you can teach her that she can this space where she can go and listen to music or play when she's not feeling good for whatever reason. But for now, the steps have to be, and she will learn to do that on her own very soon. But for now, as you get her to understand this, you can record sound of the baby crying and let her hear that once in a while. Show her how she can play and stop. She can increase the volume, decrease the volume. This is what is used in auditory integration. We desensitize the children by doing this, and they feel in control when they know that they can stop, and and then the high anxiety that comes with it just lessens a bit. You can also do a story about baby is sad, maybe baby is hungry. Sometimes I'm sad and feel like crying. A hug from mom makes me happy. So you can turn it into a teaching opportunity. It seems like audio is not working for Saad, so he's sending me questions in the chat. Okay. So does everyone with autism diagnosis have some sort of developmental delays associated? Yeah, the children is obviously delayed in one or more areas, and that's why we initiate assessments. Usually it's speech and social and emotional development, But then for other kids, especially those in level 3, motor and cognitive skills are affected as well. They in states they are conducting a study right now. CDC is, which is the Center for Disease Control. They are working with 2 to 5-year-old with autism and exploring early development and see the little differences they have from the typical children. This way, they're learning more about autism spectrum disorder, and they look at the risk factors of autism and developmental characteristics in the preschoolers. So I think in the coming years, we'll know more about it. I have one question that is asking about, okay. Yeah, it's asking about when are the next webinars? So if you can share your email with me, I'll send you the schedule. But you can go on the website. It's right here, autismsolutions.info. So there, check the education page, and you'll see the list where find a webinar listed for each month. And then you can also find links of the webinars that have been conducted and the recording. So link of the recording for this one will be available on that page as well. Shortly, if you have any questions about this or the following webinars, please drop me an email. Thank you and have a good night.